Weirdo.
Oof.
I don't give no what you got in your head, that neural link. You'll never outthink me. Ever.
No, this part is not alleged. Jay-Z and his team, they have been ducking and dodging, taking the DNA.
Diddy's children may not all be his, and the man who allegedly fathered some of them is Jay-Z. That's the story exploding across private group chats and industry circles this week as a decades-old paternity scandal collides with one of the most high-profile implosions in hip-hop history. At the center is Rymir Satterthwaite, a 31-year-old man who has spent over a decade in court trying to prove that Jay-Z is his biological father. But now, according to insiders tied to the case, the scope is widening because it's not just about Rymir anymore. It's about Diddy's family, Jay-Z's past, and the quiet war that may have ended their so-called brotherhood.
I don't have no felonies. I'm not crazy or none of that. It's like, I just want the truth, and it's so hard to get it from the courts. And it seems like Jay-Z don't want to say anything. So, I don't want to see him go down for something that you could have just got taken care of. That's it.
We've known about Rymir for years. His mother, Wanda Satterthwaite, swore under penalty of perjury that she had an intimate encounter with Jay-Z in 1992 when she was just 16. Rymir was born the following year. The story was pushed aside as tabloid noise until 2025, when Rymir filed a new lawsuit accusing Jay-Z's legal team of fraud and obstruction to avoid a court-mandated paternity test. Jay-Z's lawyers hit back hard, calling the suit a decades-long campaign of harassment, but federal court didn't dismiss it outright. The affidavit from Wanda, who passed away in 2019, is now part of public record, and with that came another name, Letitia Macer. Letitia is 28, and she's been saying publicly for years that Jay-Z is her father. She's claimed family members told her from birth who her dad was, and now, according to at least 2 former Rockefeller insiders, Jay-Z has allegedly been paying for her home and supporting her financially on the condition that she never uses his name publicly. She wasn't included in his public family. She wasn't invited into the Carter narrative, but the implication is clear. If that silence was bought, then something needed to be hidden. And if Jay-Z has secret children, how many secrets are still buried? Because here's where things get messy. According to multiple people close to the Satterthwaite case, at least 2 of Diddy's children may not be biologically his. The theory? That Jay-Z, during the peak of his public friendship with Diddy, was privately involved with women in Diddy's circle, and that some of the resulting children are, genetically, not Combs. We're not talking about strangers or one-night mistakes. We're talking about longtime romantic partners, ex-girlfriends, women Diddy trusted. The rumors say Jay-Z knew Diddy didn't until recently.
This morning, rap mogul Jay-Z is denying allegations he assaulted a 13-year-old girl alongside rapper Sean Diddy Combs. That civil lawsuit filed against Combs in October was amended Sunday to include Jay-Z. The accuser, identified only as Jane Doe, says she was assaulted by both men.
That bombshell alone would be enough to detonate any friendship, but the backdrop makes it even darker. Jay-Z and Diddy have a public history stretching back to the late 90s, when they collaborated after Biggie's passing. In 1997, they appeared on each other's albums. By 2005, they were jointly donating $1 million for Katrina relief. In 2020, they were toasting at the Black Billionaire brunch, locking arms, preaching unity. Diddy stood on that stage and called it a new era. United we stand, he said. Jay-Z nodded, smiled. The cameras caught everything.
I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their...
But behind those polished moments, there were cracks. The 2007 Screamfest incident is one that still gets passed around in entertainment circles. Diddy smacking Jay-Z on stage twice in front of a sold-out crowd. At the time, people laughed it off as a joke. But insiders familiar with their dynamic now point to that moment as something else. A pressure valve release, a warning, tension that had been bubbling under the surface for years because even back then, Jay-Z's history with women in Diddy's orbit was an open secret. Fast forward to 2024 and the brotherhood collapsed. When Diddy was arrested on charges tied to trafficking and coercion, Jay-Z said nothing, not a word on social media, no support statement, not even a lawyered-up PR nod. 50 Cent mocked the silence, joking that Jay-Z must be in hiding, but some close to the situation say the silence wasn't fear, it was strategy. Because just weeks earlier, Diddy and Jay-Z allegedly had a falling out, a bad one. According to 2 sources who worked with Combs' legal team, Diddy had recently learned about the alleged paternity overlaps. And he wasn't just hurt, he was furious.
And I'm not saying allegedly.
Oh.
I'm saying, Sean Carter, you're a piece of shit. taking Pimp C wasn't bad enough? You just want to go down there and you want to just remove all of the balls from every real gangster in Houston?
That's when another rumor started spreading, mostly whispered, mostly off record, but it keeps resurfacing. That Jay-Z didn't just betray Diddy by sleeping with his partners, he pushed him toward arrest. Or at least, didn't stop it. One version says Jay-Z had access to sealed information about Diddy's past parties and the people involved. Another claims he made a call. That part hasn't been verified and no formal link has been proven. But what has been confirmed is that Jay-Z and Diddy were both named in a civil lawsuit filed by a woman, known only as Jane Doe, accusing them of assault in 2000 when she was underage. That suit was amended in December 2024 just as Diddy's legal troubles hit full throttle. Jay-Z called the allegations a blackmail attempt, Diddy denied everything. But the timing didn't go unnoticed. And here's what makes this even more twisted. Multiple associates from the Rockefeller and Bad Boy camp say Jay-Z always had a knack for staying clean while those around him burned. That when things got hot, he stepped back, watched the fire, and walked away untouched. They point to his quiet withdrawal from Diddy after March 2024, when the FBI raided Diddy's properties. No public visits, no support, just distance. And now, as Diddy sits in prison on a 50-month sentence, Jay-Z continues to expand his empire, untouched by the same scandals consuming his former ally.
And I have to still say allegedly, has done things and allegedly participated in a lot of things that the public would not be happy to know.
But the silence isn't protection anymore. The Satterthwaite lawsuit won't go away, the Letitia story won't disappear, and now that people are starting to connect the dots between Jay-Z's alleged private behavior and Diddy's unraveling, the idea of a setup isn't so far-fetched. Because if Diddy's children aren't all his, and Jay-Z was the one pulling the strings, then their so-called brotherhood was the ultimate betrayal. And the fallout is just beginning. Jay-Z's scandals don't stop at Diddy's children, they go much deeper. The civil lawsuit amended in late 2024 shocked even those desensitized to hip-hop's darker undercurrents. In it, an anonymous woman, referred to only as Jane Doe, claimed that back in 2000, when she was just 13, she was assaulted by both Jay-Z and Diddy after being given something at a post-VMAs gathering. Jay-Z responded with a full-throated denial, calling the claim a blackmail attempt. But one disturbing detail still hangs in the air. The plaintiff said a well-known female celebrity stood in the room and watched it happen. No name, no comment from her team, and no answers.
In a blistering statement, Jay-Z accuses Jane Doe's attorney of trying to blackmail him. He said further, quote, "These allegations are so heinous in nature that I implore you to file a criminal complaint, not a civil one. Whomever would commit such a crime against a minor should be locked away."
That lawsuit may be new to the public, but behind the scenes, murmurs of similar behavior have echoed for years. Industry sources say there were unspoken rules at certain parties. Who could enter, who couldn't bring phones, who was expected to play along. And while Diddy's freak-offs have now been dissected in open court, the question is whether those around him were just spectators or something more. Prosecutors painted a pattern of coercion, high-end hotels, controlled environments, and women told what to do and when to do it. Diddy has denied trafficking, but the conviction for transporting women across state lines for immoral purposes is no longer rumor, it's on the books. So where does that leave Jay-Z? He wasn't charged in Diddy's 2025 trial, but he was in the room often enough to be noticed. Some of the women who testified said powerful men took turns arranging who was invited, who was excluded, and who was kept quiet. That inner circle, as one former Combs assistant called it, included names that still dominate headlines. And if Jay-Z knew the dynamics going on behind closed doors, the silence becomes harder to defend. One former Roc Nation employee put it bluntly, "You didn't need to see everything to know what was happening."
But after that major documentary comes out on Diddy, then you're going to start to hear more and more about Jay-Z and his nefarious.
But Jay-Z's legal problems don't end with whispered parties and closed-door allegations. In 2025, Ramir Satterthwaite returned to court with a vengeance, armed with new evidence, this time accusing Jay-Z's legal team of outright fraud. According to filings, Jay-Z's lawyers claimed he didn't own any property in New Jersey, a jurisdictional dodge to avoid taking a DNA test. But public records tell a different story, showing his name tied to multiple properties in the state, some of which were purchased under corporate entities. Ramir's mother, Wanda, had passed away by then, but her affidavit still stood. She had a brief relationship with Jay-Z in the early 90s when she was 16. Her son was born in 93. Jay-Z's team has consistently labeled the entire case as harassment. But what the public sees now is a man with billions in assets, refusing to submit to the same standard any other alleged father would face. And Ramir isn't the only name tied to this lineage mess. Letitia, who claims to be Jay-Z's daughter, has gone on record saying her entire family knew the truth and that Jay-Z had been secretly supporting her financially for years. According to multiple insiders, he's been paying for her housing and utilities, even requesting that she not display his photos in her home. If that's not admission, it's certainly damage control.
Never got anything, so why wouldn't I believe my mom? Like, we could have been settled this, and it only takes a conversation and some words. I'm not a hateful guy. I don't hate anyone. I'm not after nobody. I'm not trying to see no one downfall, but this is just some things that just went through court, and they just expected me to just sit there and just take what they were saying. I can't.
But the real question isn't just about money, it's about power. Jay-Z has long positioned himself as the blueprint for business-minded Black excellence. His $2005 million donation with Diddy, made during a high-profile Hurricane Katrina telethon, was held up as proof of philanthropy. They presented the check on camera. Smiles. Unity. But what if that generosity was something else? One former label executive alleges that it wasn't just goodwill. It was a calculated move to shield both men from rising scrutiny after a string of harassment complaints inside their camps. It was image laundering, the exec said. Every dollar spent was a distraction from what was being whispered.
As far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he had to, he won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway house.
And those whispers haven't stopped. After Diddy's arrest, Jay-Z's silence raised eyebrows across the industry. No statements, no visits, no legal fundraisers, just quiet detachment. Some thought it was self-preservation, others thought it was fear. But now, according to 3 independent sources, that silence was deliberate and strategic. But there's one more layer to this, and it involves Beyonce. Back in 2003, Beyonce released Summertime, a lesser-known track that quietly featured Jay-Z. Around the same period, Diddy was working closely with her team on production credits tied to her debut solo era. On the surface, it looked like mutual support from hip-hop's elite, but some industry veterans now wonder whether Jay-Z's move to jump on that track was more calculated. Was it a simple musical collab, or was Jay-Z inserting himself into Beyonce's rise to keep tabs on the man already circling her career? At that moment, Diddy was everywhere: events, parties, studio sessions, and Jay-Z had every reason to stay close, if only to watch what Diddy might uncover. Fast forward nearly 2 decades, and the dynamic gets even murkier. In 2020, a wave of quiet tension swept through Beyonce's fan base when whispers emerged that her team had known about the Rymere situation for years and chose to stay silent. One former associate from her label claimed that Beyonce's management had seen legal correspondence related to Jay-Z's paternity cases as early as 2018. There were concerns not just about scandal, but about brand integrity. If Beyonce stood by a man who had allegedly fathered multiple secret children while avoiding tests, what did that say about the empire they'd built together? The decision, according to insiders, was to freeze it out. Ignore the noise. Keep it clean.
What I've heard about them as a couple is that they've been living separate lives for a very long time.
But the silence is starting to feel like strategy. As Jay-Z distances himself from Diddy and more paternity evidence becomes public, questions naturally shift toward Beyonce's role in the narrative. She's been the face of empowerment, motherhood, control, yet has never addressed the growing list of women claiming connections to her husband. Some of these women have gone viral, with facial comparisons and family testimonies racking up millions of views. Still, no comment. Not even a vague denial through a rep, which raises a troubling question. If Diddy's kids aren't all his, does Beyonce know? And is that why she's never spoken out? This isn't just about family secrets. It's about the optics of loyalty and control. Beyonce has long curated an image of harmony and precision, but these scandals threaten that veneer. If Jay-Z's silence served to protect himself legally, Beyonce's silence may have been about legacy, protecting the Carter name, shielding her children from questions she already knows the answers to, and in doing so, reinforcing the idea that some truths are too destabilizing to acknowledge, especially when billions are at stake. Because if Jay-Z's secrets are finally coming out, the one person who's been quietest might be the one who knows the most.
Lives, and we may actually see one of the biggest divorces in Hollywood is because Jay-Z is up next to be exposed.
One entertainment attorney connected to the case claims Jay-Z had early knowledge that Diddy's inner circle was under investigation. Not only did he distance himself, but he allegedly rerouted certain assets and cut off shared business ties months before federal agents moved in. It wasn't a reaction, it was a plan. Because here's the twist. What if the biggest scandal isn't who fathered Diddy's children, but who's been controlling the entire narrative? Jay-Z has remained untouchable for decades. He's weathered cheating scandals, civil lawsuits, violent allegations from the 90s, and now potential paternity exposure, all while rising in wealth and influence. But now, as lawsuits inch closer to the truth and more women come forward with stories that echo familiar patterns, his control is slipping. In the words of one former Rockefeller affiliate, Jay knew everything. He always did. He just knew how to shut it down before it reached his front door. But doors are opening now, records are being unsealed, and even Beyonce's silence, once seen as protective, is starting to look like distance. There's no sign of coordinated family appearances, no joint interviews, no unified front. That doesn't confirm guilt, but it shows something's changed, and it suggests more cracks are coming.
After they are done with Diddy, Jay-Z is up next to be exposed, right?
Meanwhile, Rhaenyra's federal lawsuit remains active. Letitia's supporters continue to circulate photos comparing her features to Jay-Z's, and Diddy, already serving his sentence, is said to be in talks with lawyers about what cooperation might look like if more charges emerge. Some speculate that Diddy still has leverage, and if he starts talking, it won't just be his own actions he reveals, it'll be everyone who was in the room with him. And that list? It's long. So if Jay-Z's secrets are finally coming out, the real question is, who's next to expose him, and what else is he hiding? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Are we just scratching the surface, or are we watching the fall of an empire? Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and never trust the silence.